Good afternoon. How many of you know about Flipkart? Oh, all right. Well, just like that was not a talk about 3D printing, this is not a talk about how we will beat Amazon. I'm just waiting for this thing to get started. What I would like to talk today, while we are waiting for this, is I'll give you some context on the environment Flipkart operates in. We can talk a little bit about the journey Flipkart has had so far. And I know not everybody's hands were up, so I can tell you what Flipkart does if you have not already deduced from the Amazon comparison. And then we can talk about what does it take to build good technology in a country like India. How do you go about doing something? And I'll give you a couple of examples. They are like hot off the press. Some of them you would not even have heard of, but I'd like to tell you about what we did at Flipkart and what impact it is having on the industry. No? All right. At least that is gone.
Sorry, I'm trying to make sure.
No, which is good. At least that's gone. So before we get, I can talk without the slides. So let me tell you, it's up? All right, fantastic. So Flipkart is the leading e-commerce company in India. You can think of the Amazon of India. It is the market leader with the largest market share. Last time I talked about it, the second largest company was Snapdeal, and third largest was Amazon in India. And now, the numbers have changed, I believe, though, these things are hard to tell because everybody claims they're bigger, just like we do. But, it's hard to tell. But the thing is, one thing is indisputable. There is a revolution going on in the country. E-commerce is a revolution. I will even say and I lived here just before I moved there. It is probably a lot more intense than what we see over here in US. There is a lot of factors behind that. One of the factors I've written over here, which is there is a mobile-based internet access revolution, which is going on in the country. India is the country which adds the most number of smartphones every month. I believe it's around 8 million smartphones, more than any other country in the world. Obviously, large population, a lot of people do not have smartphones right now. There are around 900 million phones which are being used, out of which around 250 million are smartphones. So there is a lot of latent demand right there of people who carry phones but do not actually use smartphones. They are stepping up. Other markets are relatively more saturated or much smaller in absolute numbers. So it's not surprising that India is far ahead of others in terms of adding smartphones in the world. It's also a country with immense young population. If you look at India, there are 50% of the country is under age of 25. Now imagine that, take all the people in America, add another set of all people in America, and that's just the number of people in India who are under age 25, right? Now, as I grow older, I also look at other metrics like under 35. So if you take all of America, you take all of Western Europe, you add all of that together, that is how many people are in India, 800 million plus, who are under the age 35. Now, why does it matter that these people are under 25, under 35? Very simple. It's harder to teach older people new things. These people are learning how to go shop, right? If I ask my mom, she would say, we will go to the store and we'll go get it. Whereas these people are very comfortable with pulling out the phone out of their pocket, which now has data access on it. And more that is coming through. And they go and they buy things on that phone. Now, this is the context in which Flipkart is operating. This is the context in which every other e-commerce company is operating. It is not surprising. When I am there and I'm sitting at home and I have some friends over for dinner, the number of people who are willing to deliver what I want to me is way higher in Bangalore than it is in Palo Alto, where I live over here, which is also another one of those microcosms where all these startups are trying to do things. It is just surprising how this thing is working out. So now let's look at the Flipkart journey. Flipkart started just like Amazon with book sales, and then went and added one thing after another, which was good for users. They went and added customer support 24/7. If you have been to India, if you have spent any time in India, you will realize how big a deal to have 24/7 customer support is. They added return policies. They added mechanisms which were unique to the country, like cash on delivery. They added their own delivery system. Now, as you can see, this is the path which Flipkart was on. It was trying to build an Amazon in India where there was no FedEx, where there was no credit card. So it went and built all of those things. Then expanded beyond books, went into cameras, electronics, so on and so forth. Then expanded from its own products to a marketplace where everybody can go and list their things, which is what Amazon also does, which is what eBay does. A lot of people have these open marketplaces. And most recently, we had like some of the biggest sale in the country where we sold $100 million, actually more than $100 million worth in 9 hours. I think $300 million worth in a day. And all of this is happening so fast that when I created this slide, this was a couple of months ago, it doesn't even include the fact that very recently, Flipkart decided, hey, I want to sell large appliances and televisions and things like that in India. Now, imagine, again, going back to the original context I had talked about, 250 million smartphones. I forgot to mention, less than 100 million people have desktop or laptops. So majority of the people who come to Flipkart actually come on their phones. 75% of our traffic is actually people pulling out their phones and buying things using that. And we started selling them refrigerators, we started selling them washing machines, we started selling them televisions, cars, motorcycles, and we are selling them all through the phone. And as soon as we started doing that, in May, we decided we will sell televisions and things like that, like 55-inch, 65-inch, whatever you want. No Philips, no Sony, no LG, none of these brands because they don't sell online in India. And within 6 months, we were the market leader. The single biggest source of buying large appliances was Flipkart, all from the phone. So this is the context which we are in, and this is the journey which is there. But that is not what this talk is about. This is to give the context. Now, the question really is, well, what is great? Like, how do you use technology? So my point here, and this is one of my learnings from having worked in India, is it is presenting an immense opportunity to change how things are done worldwide. It is not just about India. It is about going and creating technologies which can change how things are done anywhere else. And the reason is, these are some of the statistics. We can talk about them later. The reason is, the problems in countries like India are unique, and there is nobody looking at those problems right now, other than over there. I will give you a small example of a problem which, a good company over here called Google actually looked at from an Indian lens and ended up becoming the way Google does things worldwide. How many of you use Google Maps? You know Google Maps, right? Right? Before that was MapQuest. Do you guys remember MapQuest? Yeah? So the way those companies used to work was there was a company called Navtech, which would actually give you data, which is geocoded data about streets, how they are laid out, what the lat and long for every address is. And they would license that data out, and you can build mapping and routing on top of that. So this is really GIS data, which has been licensed by these companies. And then they build mapping solutions. That is how MapQuest did it. That's how Google Maps did it. But guess what the problem is? A unique problem. In a country like India, there is no such mapping information. Now, a map kind of system just does not work in India. There is no maps, there is no routing, there is no locations. All of these things start to fail because fundamentally, the content is missing. Well, that's a unique problem to India. And when I say unique, I actually mean while we sit here in Bay Area, it seems like not a problem, and it is a problem over there, not over here. right? And it's not really that bad because majority of the innovations in software industry in the world are coming out of this geography. So it's a unique problem. But there is an engineering office Google has in Bangalore, and the engineers sitting over there, they thought, well, why do we have to not have any data? Let's create a crowdsourced version of the data, and let's build technology which will protect us from spamming. Because the minute you do crowdsourcing, well, guess what first thing people do is they start putting their home addresses and all that everywhere, right? So protect it from spamming because being prominent for a certain search in Google Maps would actually have very high economic value. People will immediately try to exploit it. So they built a system to protect the purity of data and opened it up and crowdsourced it. Very soon, most of the developed world, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Africa, they all got maps because of that system. Now, the system was better in quality than what Navtech was providing. How many of you have had GPS in which you try to enter an address and there is no such address because there was a new construction, there was a new community, there's new roads? It is because that data is not updated. Exactly. And the thing is, with crowdsourced systems, that does not happen. Guess what Google did? They wiped out all that data and they crowdsourced the whole world. All of Google Maps you get today is actually data which has been built using that system. Now, if you look at this pattern, what it says is there are problems which we do not perceive if we are in an environment like this, but they are unique to a country like India. But if you build it right, you can start from there and leapfrog, and you can actually change the whole world. So that is what this talk is about. I'll give you a couple of examples of how we are doing things. Here are some examples for some problems. Reliability is in short supply. If you've been to India, you would not be surprised by this at all, right? If somebody tells you, hey, I'm going to be there at 10 a.m., better not be there at 10 a.m. That person is not showing up at that time, right? If you buy a 4G plan, 50% of the time, that'll work at 2G. It just would not work. If you have, actually, instead of going more and more, let me just suffice to say, if you have booked a train ticket in India, have you ever? Do you know IRCTC? If anybody knows IRCTC, that is the railway train ticketing system. It is the poster child of unreliability. I'm sorry if somebody here actually was behind building that website. I really apologize. When I first moved to India, when I was working for Google, not first moved to India, I grew up in India, but like when I first moved back to work as an adult, I realized it was surprising. 50% of payment transactions used to fail because of unreliable payment gateways. Now imagine that, how much incentive there is. The guy has taken out the credit card, has everything ready, and has submitted the form. All you have to do is collect the money, and 50% of the time it fails. That is like all the incentives are lined up, and still it fails. So that is a level of reliability. Low-end hardware is very prominent. We are talking about mobile internet and the excitement which is coming through access. Low-end hardware is very prominent because hardware prices are dropping. $250 phone today is worth $200 today and is slightly better. But the hardware which was in $250 is now in $150 phone. And given that 700 million mobile devices are not smartphones yet, there is enough demand to go get the $150 phone. If you have followed news, somebody recently announced that there was a $25 smartphone, right? Your smartphone is cheaper than your data plan. That is the kind of hardware which is available, which people have to rely upon as a platform to go do engineering on. I don't have examples here of what cool things we have done for that, but that is an example that these are the kind of problems we have to solve over there. Per unit cost of tech is high. Despite that, if you look at what it costs to have a megabyte or a megapixel of anything, it is much higher in a place like India. You guys know Big Mac Index, right? Big Mac Index, which is an economic way of saying what is the cost of Big Mac in a country, take the ratio, and that is how much poverty that country has. Well, you should try to calculate the iPhone index, and you'll see per tech cost is much higher. An iPhone and not just iPhone, like pick any technology is usually 50% more expensive in India than it is over here. So all these problems are kind of unique, and how do you build solutions for it? What that means is when per unit cost of tech is high, I'll give you an example of how it becomes a problem. So here is going back to the original point. What this means is here is an opportunity to leapfrog. But how do you leapfrog? Well, here's how Flipkart has done it. You start from the user. Nothing else matters. It does not matter who your partners are, what things you're selling, and all that. What matters is what does the user want. You start from the user, you start looking at the problems, and you start walking backwards, and you solve all the problems through technology. Well, there are other ways to solve the problem too, but the ones which we will talk about here are solving through technology. Unfortunately, not many companies in India have a strong track record of doing this. I actually have had very hard time finding things which are doing something like this and came out of India. Like if you take the biggest products which that market uses, Android phones, not built in India. Android is built over here. When they fire up Android, they use Facebook. Facebook, it's banned in China. India is the largest population on Facebook today. It's built over here. Latent need, but it's built here. WhatsApp, another example. I can go one after another. Largest pieces of software, products, they all built over here. So there is not a very good track record, but it is starting to change. And it is starting to change, and I think that this is the opportunity. Identifying unique problems, like I gave you the example of Google Maps, identifying unique problems and saying, how do we go solve this? And there is a guarantee if you solve it well, it will actually go and be applicable elsewhere. Something like WhatsApp is a very good example of a solution which was not needed in West Coast US. It was very much needed in places like India, but was solved here in Mountain View. It could have been solved there, and then it would have easily become something very popular worldwide. All right, so I will give you two examples. This is a simpler one. The next one is a lot more dear to my heart. Here is an example. We have a catalog in Flipkart. When you have a catalog, you have to have images in it. Now, catalog images generally have an impact on conversion. If you have a bad image, the person will not actually buy as much. They don't like what they're seeing, the product quality. It's like showcasing is not there, right? So, well, what do? There is certain quality criteria by which you have to have that image, because if you don't publish good quality images, our overall numbers go down. It's not good for the user. How do you go and publish good images? Well, we have things like the background should be white. There should be no shadows. Problems like that, right? But now this turns what was going to be a simple image upload exercise to a professional photo taking exercise. You have to actually bring in professionals who have to have the right kind of lighting and the background, the backdrop. Now, going back to the Indian context, that is non-trivial. The minute you do that, you have limited your seller base all the way to the very top. If there's a guy who's making belts in Agra, or somebody who's in Jaipur creating some sort of handicraft, those guys are not going to spend 5,000 rupees and bringing a professional photographer to take all these pictures, right? They will struggle to do that. So we said, well, what do we do? So we came up with a mechanism. We said, one of the technology, let's go user walk backwards. How can the user take the picture? The easiest way the user can take the picture is by pulling out their phone and taking a picture like that. All right, great. If they take the picture, can we do anything about it? Then technology comes into play. Do you guys know deep learning? The term deep learning, right? So deep learning is a very, well, it's not a recent phenomenon. It is a well understood mechanism which has been in theory for over 20 years. But because of the amount of computational power which is available now, it has become very natural. That is the power which drives things like self-driving car. That is the thing which actually helped a machine beat a human in Go 4:1 recently. So we said that, okay, if we apply deep learning, a human brain can tell, looking at anything, this is the background, this is the foreground, this is the shadow, this is not the shadow. Well, can we train a machine to go do these things? If we can train a machine to do these things, then we can actually go clean it up. So that is what we did. We actually went and trained the machine to go detect what is the person and what is the background and go clean it up. Now, the minute you do that, now the experience for the end user changes very clearly. That person can put the thing on a tablecloth, take a picture, and we can say, yes, it's cleaned up, this is how good it is, or it is not, try again, right? It is like, how if you have tried mobile check deposit, that is the kind of experience we brought down to. Now, that was so much easier, right? Here are some examples. We were able to detect not only shadows, but the fact that, the person was sitting on a box, and this is the leg, and that is actually part of the background. Things which human brain understands, we were able to make our systems understand. And this is non-trivial. Obviously, things human brain understands that a person cannot sit like that is still missing. That level of understanding is missing, but at least the pictures were getting cleaner. Now, this is an example of taking technology and suddenly making a particular experience accessible to a lot more of India. But if you do that right, now you have leapfrogged. There is no reason why anybody would spend, even if they can spend money, the amount of effort in going and doing things when they can as easily take a picture, right? So that is an example. But here is a better example. This is something which we are just rolling out. Have you heard of Flipkart Lite? Anybody? Okay, a couple of people. So you will know what I'm talking about. And this is an example. So there's a problem statement here. Many sites in the world, when you go to, you are asked to install their applications, right? I'm sure everyone here has experienced that. You go to LinkedIn, you go to Yelp, you will be asked, hey, go install our application, right? Now think about this equivalence in the real world. You walk into a store, it takes a lot to bring somebody to a site, right? You walk into a store, and the first thing the storekeeper says is, can you please go to that other city, to that bigger store of mine, right? Will anybody ever do that? Will you ever run your business that way, that when a customer has finally walked in, the first thing you're saying is, please go over there. I cannot serve you here. And that is what we do. And the stats, 96% of the traffic is lost, and 96% is still better. Like 92 is, it's 2 to 4% is what people actually end up going and installing. Then why do people do that, right? Why do you do that? The reason you do that is because when you have installed the application, you are a lot more engaged. If I was going to walk into your store and spend $1, but if you were able to send me somewhere else where I'll spend $50, it is worth losing 96% of your traffic and sending the person over there, right? So that is what actually happens all the time. Apps give much better experience. You are able to, first of all, find the application by looking at the icon over there, right? You are launching it more often. You have hardware access. It scrolls so much faster. It is so much smoother. The pictures render better. You get notifications, whether you like it or not. You click on them, you again go back and you use the application. It works offline. If you're in airplane mode and you have cache data, you have news stories or whatever, you can actually go use that. All of these things work which do not work in websites. You cannot go to a website when you're offline. It does not usually notify you. The overall hardware acceleration is missing. It does not understand that. It cannot cache parts of things. On top of that, there is a big disadvantage apps have, which becomes a unique to India problem. An e-commerce application like Flipkart requires 10 megabytes of download. Now, there are two problems here. The per unit cost of tech is high, if you remember. I have to install 10 megabytes of download, which means I have to pay for 10 megabytes of data, and I have to store 10 megabytes on my phone. As we are going down and lower-end phones are becoming more and more prominent, that 10 megabytes actually comes very dear. Your uninstall rates will go up the minute the person installs another application. Your update rates are low. When you push out a new application, people will not really go do that. Why will they burn another 10 megabytes of their data? And India is a very, what is in it for me, or what is the value of this money I'm spending kind of country. It's a country where millionaires, in their BMWs and Mercedes, will give their driver a missed call. They will not call the guy. He'll give a missed call. You know what the missed call concept is, right? Like where you call the person and you hang up quickly so you don't actually have to pay that 1 paisa to complete the call. But that's what even millionaires will, because why? Why should I pay that? I transmitted the information, the driver shows up, right? So in that environment, imagine telling people, hey, you don't even know me, you have come here to install something, and by the way, 10 megabytes, please burn your data, please burn your storage, and then I will show you something, right? Despite all the brand power Flipkart has, our stats were barely 8% when that was happening. So we started and we said, well, let's think from fundamental. Again, go to the user, walk backwards. Why are we sending our users elsewhere? Why do the websites have low engagement? It is not about the website. It's not about like HTML technology or anything like that. It's not about the application. It's not about Android native applications or anything like that. It is really about the experience you are giving to the user. It's the fact that the user cannot actually have the very smooth scrolling experience, the nice touch latency. It's the fact that the user does not find the icon easily on their desktop. It's about the fact that they do not get notifications. It does not work offline. All of these examples are why people do not use it as much. So we decided that we will go fix that. So we started with a point saying there should be no difference between our mobile website and our mobile application. Now think about that. No other company had done that in the world. And why were we trying to do this? It was because we could not afford the 10 megabyte, and all that dialogue. We were losing a lot of traffic on that. So we said, what if there was no difference between the two? We racked our brains. We came up with a very limiting factor. Browsers do not support what is needed to be able to do something like this. When the browsers don't support something like that, well, you cannot do it. So we built a list. We said, here are the 17 things the browser has to do. We went to Google. We said, can Chrome do this? Thankfully, and obviously, it is in Chrome's interest to be able to do that, because otherwise people will use less and less any kind of browser. They said, yes, we will do it. Our condition was it has to be open source. It has to be World Wide Web standards. They're more than happy to do that. So they went and built that. Then we went to Opera. We said, can you do that? Yes, we can do it. We are currently talking to Firefox. We are talking to Microsoft and UC browser. You guys might not know UC browser, but it's the most prominent browser in India. And they are all going and supporting that list of 17. But Chrome already did. As a matter of fact, if you have an Android phone with Chrome, and it doesn't work on Apple for a very simple reason, because on Apple, all the browsers actually are the same browser. They all use WebKit. They just have different names on it. But if you have Android, you can actually go and using the latest version of Android or Chrome or Opera, if you go to the website, you cannot tell the difference between that and an app. So what we ended up doing is we built a website which has super fast experience. It had access to phone hardware. You could take it offline. You could start the app. It would actually get you to install an icon which is 4 kilobytes as opposed to 10 megabytes to launch the same application. It will start exactly from where you left it off. Right? Websites don't do that. If you go to Google or any website tomorrow, it's not going to start from where you left it off. Applications do that. It was able to provide all sort of scrolling, airplane mode, all kind of functionality. If you went to a web page and there were 5 televisions listed and you checked 2 of them and not the other 3, and your phone went offline, you would still be able to interact with those 2 listings and not with the other 3. A website cannot do that. In a website, you cannot look at the entire web page and say, OK, these elements are offline and these elements are online. So we went through across the board and we did that. The net result, which is, this is why it's like hot off the press, the net result is that 8% number changed to 83%. 83% of people, when they came to our website, were installing it, and the conversion numbers did not change. They were the same. So imagine all those people who were running away now are coming in and conducting business with us. There is no reason why this is an India-only problem. And this is what I'm talking about, like leapfrogging technology. Just last month, we held a workshop in Bay Area, Flipkart did. We held a workshop in Bay Area where it was invite only, but companies which came and learned from us on how to do this. Google, Facebook, Uber, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Microsoft, Firefox. These are the companies which have some of the best mobile engineers in the world. They came and said, OK, let's learn how did you build something like this, right? Sorry, I'm over time, but.
Yeah, about a minute.
OK. There was a video here. It doesn't play? I hope so. Well, it doesn't. This is, there's no sound. So this is a video which shows the concept of what that application looks like. And you can take a look. I think we are at the end of the conversation. The real point here is there are unique problems in the country. If we look at the user and we walk backward and we solve those problems through deep technology, we end up creating what are called what I think of as leapfrogging technologies, which then become solutions across the world for future. So that is what we are trying to do. Here's an example, as you can tell, of how this application works. And this is on Flipkart.com, right? It also sends you push notifications, so you will get those annoying notifications anyway. All right, any questions?
We are running late, so.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.